Welcome, brothers and sisters, to today's video entitled #Garbage. Now, before, in one of my earlier videos, W5E, we discussed a certain problem that I have with a certain organization and their bully incarnate champion, Brock Lesnar. And I just found out through one of my brothers who does keep tabs on these kinds of things that they've decided that now it is not only so important for the bully incarnate Brock Lesnar to be the WWE champion, but it is so important that he be seen as okay for his actions that it has now been decided that the 30-day title defense limitation that has existed since I and pretty much every wrestling fan were children, that said a champion is forced to defend the WWE title or the Intercontinental title or the Hardcore title or any of the other titles that have existed in WWE at least once every 30 days. And that is probably the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. That means that while everybody else is doing work, Brock Lesnar is sitting on his ass at home, I guess shooting steroids or eating cheese doodles or whatever the fuck Brock Lesnar does. Pumping iron and staring at himself in the mirror, talking about how cool he is. Whatever it is that Brock Lesnar does in his off time. And he's being paid out the ass to do this. To disrespect wrestling and just to be a total waste of time. So, I really have to ask WWE, what are you, fucking stupid? I mean, you could pay anybody to come in and be better than Brock Lesnar. Yeah, he's big. So what? Take Paul Heyman away from him, he's worthless. And so you leave the title sitting with a pay-per-view coming, and now the title's not even going to be defended. Wow, that's new. What an excellent pay-per-view this will be when the WWE title is not even defended. Wow, this must be a really important show. Meanwhile, I guess even Brock Lesnar will be sitting at home, still eating cheese doodles, watching it on TV. Thinking, I'm Brock Lesnar and I'm the WWE champion and Hell in a Cell's going on and I'm not even there. Wow, that's wonderful. And who's to blame for all this? Who's to blame for all this fake, this total waste of time that we have to watch on TV? They say it's my hero, that it's Triple H who's responsible. And lately, I can't help but agree with them. Because the way he's acting now, it's like he just doesn't understand anything. Let's take some examples. The first one we've already discussed at length. That'd be Brock Lesnar and his failure to understand that he's nothing more than an oversized bully, and he's bullying you, and he's bullying the WWE, and you're letting it happen, and you're paying him to do this. Now let's move on to our second example. Something I love talking about spotting. Fakers. Because one thing I do know is my family, the Darkness. I know when I see them. And I know when I see a faker. And we've got one that's existed in the midst for a long time because he proves through his actions to this day that what he believes he is and what he actually is are two very different things. And that man's name to pretty much everybody in the WWE universe is Sting. So, what am I saying? Sting's not a wrestler? No, of course not. Sting's entertained people for decades. But what I am saying is Sting, as Sting even chooses to portray himself with his black and white face paint and his scorpion onesie and his gloves and the black painted wooden baseball bat, I know who he's trying to be. I know who he thinks he is. But then when you ask him, he says he's the opposite. I believe it was Sting who said he was sort of an archangel. Now, don't know what book Sting's been reading, what mystery story this comes from, but I've never seen an archangel painted everywhere carrying around a dark sword. You just wouldn't see that. It wouldn't make sense. But yet Sting claims that he's an archangel who flies down from the sky with a black baseball bat. And it makes no sense. I just don't see how either Sting, who claims that he's this religious person who believes him to be such a good person that's going to be forgiven for all this crap, or the WWE would allow him to double-side his own story. Because we know who Sting really is. Sting was always part of the darkness. He just doesn't like to admit that. Paints his face half white sometimes to try and remind himself that he's still the good guy. It's a justification. But sometimes he forgets that. He forgets to even justify his own actions. He takes the white off and puts red there instead. We've seen this more than once. So maybe Sting doesn't even know who Sting is. And you ask yourself then, why would people continue to allow somebody like this to fake what we actually know, what we know is real? I personally do not tolerate these kinds of things. So I speak out about them because I do not tolerate them. It's just another scam to make money off people. Oh, well, let's pretend Sting is the Crow now. But wait, wasn't the Crow about one of the children of darkness? I could have swore it was. But Sting says he's not one of us. So, how then can Sting be the Crow? Whatever. So, there's issue number 2, Triple H. Lying. You do this. You have a habit of doing it. Lying because you don't really understand something. You just claim to. Here's another good example, Triple H, of those things that I like to call hashtag garbage. Let's talk about your new push boy, Dean Ambrose. Who, okay, gutter kid, got it. However, despite what anything in the gimmick says, for as long as Dean Ambrose continues to throw punches like he is a teenage girl, then I think every wrestler should be allowed to take those punches like he is throwing them like a teenage girl and no-sell them constantly. Because in reality, if you were hit by somebody like that, you would laugh at them. Guys like Kane and Randy Orton that have been beating ass for years, you think they'd let somebody like Dean Ambrose come in and get away with it? No. He'd have been put down months ago. But apparently, instead, we need to push him as some new hero. But it's not even just that the boy can't throw punches. I watched as Dean Ambrose took a choke slam from Kane, and I could have swore that I've seen Hornswoggle take better choke slams than Dean Ambrose. Because it looked like he almost fell with the hand instead of doing anything like he was supposed to. I'm not talking about Dean Ambrose the gimmick. I'm talking about the wrestling of the wrestler. It's pathetic. He makes everybody look bad. Because why would you let yourself get beat up by some punk-ass little kid like this? So, if that's the gimmick you've got all your wrestlers playing, I can see why they'd be a little unhappy with it. I can see why those who would consider themselves legends in wrestling in their own right would consider it kind of pathetic that they're letting some weak little half-teenager and get over on them. So, there's issue number 3, Triple H, about why your shows are now hashtag garbage. So, let's move on to the 4th issue. The one thing above all these things that I personally, as a wrestling fan, cannot stand, and that is what Triple H has done to Triple H. Because I grew up watching wrestling, and I've watched Triple H since I was a kid. Now, I've seen every side of Triple H, from the snob to the game to the King of Kings to the McMahon-Helmsley era. I've seen more Triple H than Triple H may even remember. And that's because the character was about right. And you, as a person, were allowed to generally be who you were, just with nicknames and concepts. And it was great, because you really were that ruthless. And you really were that conniving. But now, apparently, you forgot who you are. Because I remember the game. The game would never prance around in a suit and pretend to be Vince McMahon. Well, except that one time with Shawn. But that was because Shawn wanted it, and you guys were doing a DX gimmick to make fun of them. So it was fun to prance out there as Vince. But now you do it like it's a habit. Now you try to play like you're Shane. Wait, aren't you Triple H? So I would say that above all those other things, that every time I see Triple H walk out into the ring in some suit and tie like he's some big corporate businessman and act like he's now Vince in the flesh is pathetic. Because Triple H was always better than Vince McMahon. He proved that more than once. So why then would Triple H become Vince McMahon? Doesn't make any sense. Not from my hero. Not from the guy who put Stephanie down. Not from the guy who put everybody down, whoever stood in his way. He'd never let this kind of garbage dominate his television show if he was running it. He'd force them to learn and to try harder and to accept to do even those things they wouldn't want to. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd accept help from somebody that actually wants to help. He says he watches the internet forums. Let's see, Triple H, how much you really believe in the WWE Universe. Let's find out whether or not you can actually be shown what it means to be you again, and to let the others be shown what they are again, so that everybody can just go back to enjoying the wrestling that we remember and not watching hour after hour after hour of the hashtag garbage that you keep putting on TV every week and disrespecting all of us by doing it. Maybe you'll listen, Triple H. Maybe you won't. Maybe Vince will hear it instead. Maybe he'll listen because you won't bother to. Or maybe the raving bitch will come back in Stephanie, and one night while you're trying to sit and have a nice dinner at home, she might go off on you, old school, and start screaming at you about why everything's failing. Maybe that'll happen instead. But no matter which one has and deserves to happen, it's time for some change, WWE. And it's up to the WWE Universe as a whole to show them that we want this change. So I would bid all of you to, in your own way, just as I've done with this video, tell the WWE that you are tired of what they're doing. Tell the WWE that you will not put up with this sorry excuse for wrestling as the new that we pay $10 a month for to be shown what wrestling used to be, and the hashtag garbage that it is now. So I would ask everybody on Twitter, blow it up every Monday night, every Friday night, during every pay-per-view, every time you see this crap on TV. Hashtag garbage, and blow them up until they have to listen. Every forum that we're on, show them, tell them the truth, and why we as the universe will not allow this garbage to continue to predominate our wrestling lives. Because we could change the channel. We're trying to give wrestling one more chance. But it won't last much longer, not at the rate it's going downhill. They may bring the Faker Sting back. They may finally get Brock Lesnar to wrestle. But it won't save their show, because then the week after, it'll go right back to being hashtag garbage. Hail to the Father and all his true children.